What else are you hearing from the palace tonight about Princess Catherine's condition, not to mention the timing of this announcement?
The palace doors open with a message no one expected to hear in a moment that stunned supporters around the world. A heartbreaking update about Princess Catherine's private health battle was officially revealed, forcing the royal family into one of its most emotional moments in years. Behind the carefully chosen words was a deeply personal struggle, a family facing uncertainty, and a decision that would reshape how the monarchy protected one of its most beloved figures. King Charles knew every person inside the palace understood the weight of that announcement. The monarchy had spent decades building an image of stability, compassion, and continuity, and Catherine had become one of the strongest symbols of that promise. Her role was not simply ceremonial. She represented a future generation of the royal family, a figure admired for connecting tradition with a more personal approach to public service. The carefully prepared statement carried a painful truth. The palace confirmed that Princess Catherine was facing a serious private health battle that required treatment, recovery, and a temporary reduction of her public duties. This was not just a change to a schedule. For the monarchy, public duties are the official appearances and responsibilities royal figures carry on behalf of the institution, and Catherine stepping back created a moment of uncertainty unlike anything many expected. Prince William received the briefing away from the public eye, holding the document that would soon reach millions. He read every line without speaking, then placed the paper down slowly as the reality settled in. The future king had faced pressure before, but this was different. This was not about tradition or expectation. This was about the woman beside him and the family they had built together. Catherine's own struggle carried another layer of emotion. She was not only a senior royal preparing for time away from public life. She was a mother thinking about her children, a wife trying to reassure her family, and a person forced to confront a difficult journey privately. She wanted strength to define the moment, not fear. Behind closed doors, senior figures debated how much information should be shared and how Catherine's privacy could be protected while maintaining trust with the public. Charles understood that every word mattered, while William knew every decision would affect the person he loved most. The discussions revealed a family trying to balance duty with compassion. But the announcement did not begin on the day the world heard it. The silence, the careful choices, and the private conversations had been building toward this moment for much longer. Behind the official words was a deeper story, one involving family fears, hidden struggles, and a battle Catherine had been carrying long before the world knew her name was connected to the crisis. For the world, Catherine was a future queen admired for her strength and grace. But inside the royal household, she was not a symbol. She was a wife, a mother, and the person her family depended on most. As the announcement spread, the people closest to her faced their own private emotions, knowing that the woman who supported everyone else now needed support herself. William felt the weight of a responsibility few people could truly understand. He was not only a husband watching someone he loved face an uncertain health journey, but also the future king preparing to protect the stability of the monarchy. The position carried expectations far beyond personal feelings. As heir to the throne, he understood that every decision could affect both his family and the institution he was destined to lead. Catherine's place within the royal family had grown into something much deeper than appearances or ceremonies. She had become a trusted connection between the monarchy and the public, known for focusing on family compassion and causes that touched ordinary lives. Her absence mattered because she represented a modern image of royalty, one built on closeness, understanding, and emotional connection rather than distance. William struggled most with the contrast between public duty and private fear. In a quiet conversation away from advisors and officials, he told her that she did not have to carry the burden alone. The prince reminded Catherine that her strength was not measured by how much pain she could hide, but by her willingness to accept support when she needed it most. Charles carried his own emotional conflict as the family faced the uncertainty ahead. The king understood the importance of protecting the monarchy, but he also saw Catherine as someone deeply valued within the family. A monarch is the reigning head of the royal institution, but behind that role was a father figure watching someone important to his family endure a difficult moment. Queen Camilla also found herself navigating a delicate position. She understood the need for unity and stood beside the family during a period of tension, yet she recognized that this was not a normal royal challenge. The queen consort knew that Catherine's situation required compassion before ceremony. Palace staff noticed the atmosphere changing as normal routines were replaced with careful planning and private discussions. Every meeting carried more emotion. Every decision required more thought, and every conversation reflected concern for Catherine's recovery. The trusted advisors around the family understood that this was not simply about adjusting schedules. It was about protecting a person at the heart of the monarchy. Behind the support and the public statements, however, remained a question that few people could answer. The health battle Catherine faced was connected to a moment from the past that many had overlooked. A single conversation, a single decision, and one private turning point had quietly set the stage for everything that followed. Every royal crisis has a moment when everything changes. And for Catherine's family, that moment was not a public appearance or a headline. It was a quiet conversation behind closed doors. A single evening, a difficult decision, and words spoken in private would later become the moment everyone remembered as the beginning of the journey that eventually led to the palace announcement. Catherine had spent years carrying the expectations that came with being one of the monarchy's most visible figures. She had balanced public responsibilities, family life, and the pressure of representing a future generation of the royal family. Behind the smiles and appearances, however, there were moments when the weight of those responsibilities became harder to carry. She wanted to protect her children from uncertainty, while also protecting the stability people expected from her. Prince William noticed a change before the world did. The future king understood that something deeper was happening inside the family, even while official appearances continued. A royal responsibility is a collection of duties, public engagements, and commitments expected from members of the monarchy. And for Catherine, those duties had always been tied to her personal promise to serve others. The moment everything shifted came during a private family meeting at Windsor after receiving difficult news during a medical consultation. Catherine told William that she needed to step away from royal commitments and focus fully on recovery. The conversation was quiet, but unforgettable. She did not speak about fear. She spoke about needing time, honesty, and the chance to regain her strength. William struggled to respond. The prince sat silently for a moment, knowing that the decision affected not only their household, but also the future path of the monarchy. Then he promised her that she would not face the journey alone. The man preparing to carry the weight of the crown became, in that moment, simply a husband trying to protect the person he loved. King Charles learned how serious the situation had become through private discussions with senior family members. The king understood that Catherine's absence would create a major change because she had become a central figure in shaping the public connection with the monarchy. The monarch also recognized that protecting her dignity had come before maintaining appearances. Queen Camilla watched the family move through uncertainty with a mixture of concern and responsibility. The queen consort understood the importance of keeping the household united while emotions were running high. She knew that every reaction, every conversation, and every decision would be remembered during one of the most sensitive moments facing the royal family. Inside the palace, officials struggled with a difficult balance. They had to decide how to communicate the truth while protecting Catherine's private journey. Advisors knew that one wrong choice could change public trust forever. But the decision had been made, and the silence could not last. The private conversation at Windsor became the turning point that revealed the deeper struggle beneath the announcement. The private decision had been made, but the hardest moment was still ahead when the people protecting the crown had to face the person at the center of the storm. There are moments when royal tradition disappears, and only human emotion remains. Inside the palace, a conversation unfolded where titles, responsibilities, and expectations mattered less than one simple truth. Catherine was facing something deeply personal. The people around her had to decide whether protecting the monarchy meant pushing forward or allowing one of its brightest figures the time she truly needed. William felt the pressure building with every passing hour. The future king knew Catherine's reduced public role would create questions because she had become one of the most recognizable figures connected to the monarchy's future. A royal engagement is an official appearance or duty carried out by a member of the royal family, and every misappearance carried meaning beyond a simple change of schedule. Charles understood the same pressure from a different position. The king carried the responsibility of protecting the institution, while also thinking about the well-being of someone deeply important to his family. The monarch knew that the situation was not only about public expectations. It was about making choices during a moment when emotions could not be separated from duty. The hardest conversation came when William and the king met privately, without advisors between them. The two men struggled to discuss Catherine's future without their emotions becoming impossible to hide. The prince expressed frustration that his wife's recovery had become connected to the expectations placed on the royal family. He did not want her strength to be measured by how quickly she returned to public life. Charles listened carefully, understanding the conflict his son was facing. The monarch knew the future king had spent years preparing for responsibility, but this was a different kind of challenge. It was not a speech, a ceremony, or a constitutional decision. It was a personal battle involving someone whose presence had helped shape the public image of the next generation. Catherine entered the discussion with quiet determination. She did not want the family to make decisions based only on fear or public pressure. She insisted that her recovery had to come before appearances. She understood the importance of her role, but she also understood that healing required honesty. Camilla watched the family navigate the difficult choice with careful attention. The queen consort recognized that unity mattered more than ever, especially when the monarchy faced emotional uncertainty. She supported the need for compassion while understanding that every decision would influence how the public viewed the royal household. The conversation revealed something deeper about the monarchy itself. Behind the titles and traditions were people struggling with impossible choices. William wanted to protect his wife. Charles wanted to protect both his family and the institution he represented, and Catherine wanted the freedom to recover without feeling that she had failed anyone. But the confrontation raised a larger question that could not be ignored. When personal suffering collided with royal responsibility, who truly held the power to decide the future? Behind every royal announcement is a network of decisions, conversations, and competing priorities. While the public saw a single statement, those inside the palace understood that Catherine's future involved difficult choices about leadership, privacy, and responsibility. The question was no longer only about health. It was about who had the strength to protect her when the entire institution was watching. Charles carried the weight of those choices long after the public announcement ended. The king spent hours reviewing possible plans, knowing every decision would affect not only Catherine, but also the future image of the monarchy. The royal household operates through layers of advice and coordination, and senior advisors are the trusted officials who help guide important decisions behind the scenes. Yet even with guidance around him, the monarch understood that this moment could not be handled like an ordinary royal matter. The papers in front of him represented schedules, responsibilities, and possible changes to public duties, but he saw something much more personal. The king eventually set aside the official plans and focused on one question: how could a family protect Catherine without making her feel that she was stepping away from everything she had built? William approached the situation differently. The prince knew that his future role required preparation and discipline, but Catherine's well-being became his first priority. The future king understood that leadership was not only about appearing strong during difficult moments, it was also about making difficult choices when personal sacrifice was required. The pressure became even greater because Catherine's role represented a major part of the monarchy's next chapter. Her public work, connection with communities, and ability to communicate warmth had helped shape how many people viewed the institution. Without her presence, the royal family faced a challenge of maintaining trust while allowing her the time needed for recovery. Camilla found herself balancing support for the family with the responsibility of helping maintain stability. The queen consort recognized that every conversation carried emotional consequences. She understood that Catherine's situation required sensitivity, while also knowing that the monarchy needed careful planning during a period of uncertainty. Behind closed doors, disagreements emerged over how much information should be shared. Some believed openness would strengthen public trust, while others feared that too many details could take away Catherine's privacy. Senior figures debated every phrase, every announcement, and every public explanation connected to her journey. William continued pushing for compassion over pressure, while Charles searched for the right balance between duty and humanity. Both men knew that the decision they made would define more than a temporary change in royal responsibilities. It would reveal what kind of monarchy they wanted to represent in the future. The decision was no longer hidden inside palace walls. Once the world heard the truth, the emotional consequences began spreading far beyond the royal household. When the announcement reached the public, the monarchy entered unfamiliar territory. The carefully organized rhythm of royal life suddenly changed, and every decision carried emotional weight. Behind the formal statements were real people adapting to a new reality, especially Catherine, who now had to focus on healing while knowing millions were watching her journey. Prince William felt the pressure immediately as the family adjusted to Catherine's absence from public duties. The prince understood that every appearance, every statement, and every decision would now receive greater attention. Royal duties are the official responsibilities carried out by members of the monarchy, including public visits, ceremonies, and charitable work, and Catherine stepping away meant more than a missing schedule. It created a visible change in how the institution connected with people. The palace began reorganizing responsibilities that had once included Catherine's presence. King Charles knew the changes had to be handled carefully because the monarchy depended on consistency and public trust. The king understood that supporters looked to the royal family during uncertain moments, and maintaining stability required compassion as much as planning. Catherine experienced the emotional side of the public response in a deeply personal way. She spent time reading messages of support sent by people around the world. The kindness overwhelmed her, and the princess felt the weight of knowing that strangers were offering encouragement during one of the most difficult periods of her life. William also saw the response from the public and felt a mixture of gratitude and responsibility. The future king appreciated the support shown toward his wife, but he remained focused on protecting his family from unnecessary pressure. He knew that public affection could bring comfort, yet it could also create expectations that Catherine was not ready to meet. Charles continued watching how the monarchy adapted to the sudden change. The monarch recognized that Catherine's role had become deeply connected to the public's perception of the royal family. Her ability to create personal connections had helped modernize the image of the institution, and her temporary absence left many supporters wondering how that connection would continue. Queen Camilla faced her own challenges as the family moved through the uncertainty. The Queen Consort understood the importance of supporting Charles while also respecting Catherine's need for space. She knew that unity mattered, especially when emotions were high and every action could influence public opinion. The family made personal sacrifices as responsibilities shifted. William carried additional pressure. Charles balanced leadership with concern, and Catherine focused on recovery while trying to protect those around her. Yet beneath the uncertainty, something began to change. A quiet decision was forming inside Catherine, one that would redefine her approach to the journey ahead. The crisis had created uncertainty, but within that uncertainty came a quiet moment of strength. One decision that would transform how everyone viewed Catherine's journey. Not every powerful royal moment happens in front of cameras. Sometimes history changes in silence through a conversation between two people who have nothing to prove. For Catherine, the turning point came not through a speech or ceremony, but through a private moment where she decided how she wanted to face the future and what message she wanted her family to remember. Catherine began looking at her journey differently. The uncertainty, the fear, and the pressure that surrounded her had changed the way she understood strength. She realized that courage was not about pretending everything was easy. It was about accepting difficult moments while still believing that better days could come. William noticed that change before anyone else. The prince had spent years preparing for the responsibilities of the future, but this experience showed him that leadership was not only about public appearances or royal expectations. The future king understood that protecting his family, especially during moments of vulnerability, was one of the most important duties he would ever carry. The turning point came during a private conversation between Catherine and William without advisors or officials present. The couple spoke honestly about their fears, their children, and the future they wanted to protect. The princess explained that she did not want her recovery to be defined by pressure or the need to prove anything to the outside world. William listened carefully as his wife shared her thoughts. He realized that supporting her was not a distraction from his future role. It was part of becoming the leader he wanted to be. The prince understood that compassion could exist alongside responsibility, and that the strongest decisions were not always the most public ones. Catherine made a quiet but powerful decision. She chose to approach her recovery with patience, honesty, and acceptance rather than rushing to meet expectations. She wanted people to understand that stepping back was not weakness. It was a necessary step toward returning stronger and more prepared. Charles felt a sense of relief when he learned about Catherine's renewed determination. The king had worried about the emotional toll the situation had placed on the family, but seeing her confidence return gave him hope. The monarch recognized that her decision represented something important for the entire royal household, a reminder that protecting people mattered as much as protecting tradition. Camilla also welcomed the shift in Catherine's approach. The queen consort understood that the family needed unity more than ever. She saw that the princess had found a balance between responsibility and self-care, and she believed that honesty could strengthen the connection between the monarchy and the public. The decision created a new direction for everyone involved. William became more determined to place family first. Charles saw renewed strength within the household, and Catherine found a way to move forward without carrying the burden alone. Catherine's private choice became a message far bigger than the palace walls, and soon the entire world began responding to what they had witnessed. The announcement that began with silence eventually created a worldwide wave of compassion. Across streets, television studios, and royal landmarks, people reacted not just to a royal story, but to a human one. The image of Catherine's strength became the defining symbol of a moment when the monarchy was forced to show vulnerability instead of perfection. William watched the public response with emotions he could barely hide. The prince had expected attention, questions, and pressure, but the level of compassion shown toward his family created a different kind of moment. The future king understood that people were not only following a royal story, they were connected with a family facing uncertainty, fear, and hope. Catherine's journey reached far beyond palace walls because her role had always been closely connected to ordinary people. She had spent years focusing on causes involving families, children, and communities, which made her personal struggle feel deeply relatable to many supporters. Her health battle became a reminder that even those surrounded by privilege could experience moments of vulnerability. Broadcasters changed the way they covered the story. Instead of focusing only on schedules and royal responsibilities, many discussions turned toward compassion, patience, and respect. The strongest public reaction came outside Windsor Castle. Crowds gathered at the royal location, leaving flowers, handwritten messages, and words of encouragement for Catherine and her family. The moment became a symbol of shared support, showing that the public response was not about curiosity, but about genuine concern for someone they had watched serve others for years. Newspapers also reflected the emotional change. Front pages featured Catherine's photograph alongside messages of hope and support, showing how the story had moved beyond traditional royal coverage. The focus was no longer simply on the institution. It was on the person behind the title and the family experiencing the struggle. William felt the impact during a later royal appearance. The prince thanked supporters for their kindness and acknowledged the overwhelming support shown toward Catherine. He admitted that the messages had provided comfort during a difficult period, revealing a more personal side of the future king, one shaped by gratitude rather than obligation. Charles recognized that the moment had changed how people viewed the monarchy. The king understood that openness and humanity had become more important than maintaining an image of complete perfection. The monarch saw that the public connected more strongly when they saw the real emotions behind the institution. Camilla also recognized a shift taking place. The queen consort understood that Catherine's experience had changed conversations about duty, privacy, and vulnerability. The crisis showed that the strength of the royal family was not only measured through ceremonies or traditions, but through how they supported one another during difficult times. The world had responded with compassion, but the true meaning of this moment would only become clear when the royal family looked back at everything they had learned. The announcement began as a moment of fear, but it ended as a defining chapter of strength. Catherine's private health battle became more than a royal story. It became a reminder that behind crowns and ceremonies are people facing real emotions, difficult choices, and moments of uncertainty. In the end, the monarchy was changed not by power, but by compassion. Catherine looked back on the journey with a different understanding of what strength truly meant. The princess had entered the crisis trying to protect everyone around her, but she discovered that accepting support was also a form of courage. Her experience changed the way she viewed duty, because service was not only about standing in public moments. It was also about being honest during private struggles. William understood that the most important responsibility he carried was not connected to a title or future position. The prince recognized that protecting his family had become one of the greatest tests of his leadership. The future king had spent years preparing for the demands of the monarchy, but this experience taught him that compassion and responsibility could never be separated. The royal family adapted to a new reality after Catherine's announcement. Charles focused on maintaining stability, while ensuring that her well-being remained the priority. The king understood that the monarchy depended on public trust, and trust could only survive when people saw genuine humanity behind the institution. A monarchy is a system where a royal family serves as a symbolic head of a nation, carrying traditions, responsibilities, and public duties across generations. For centuries, the institution had been associated with ceremony and continuity, but this moment revealed something deeper. The strength of the monarchy was not only found in its history, it was found in how its members responded when life became uncertain. Charles reflected on that lesson, explaining that the future of the institution depended on empathy rather than the appearance of perfection. The king believed that showing understanding during difficult moments did not weaken the monarchy. Instead, it reminded people why the institution continued to matter. Camilla also saw the lasting impact of Catherine's journey. The queen consort recognized that the public response had changed the conversation around royal duty, privacy, and vulnerability. She understood that people connected with honesty because they saw real emotions instead of only formal responsibilities. Catherine felt gratitude for the support that surrounded her. She expressed appreciation for the messages, kindness, and encouragement that reached her during the hardest moments. The princess knew that the journey had affected millions of people who saw their own struggles reflected in hers. William, Charles, and the wider royal family emerged from the crisis with a different understanding of leadership. They learned that protecting the monarchy meant protecting the people within it. Catherine's experience became a defining moment because it showed that the greatest strength of the institution was not its traditions, ceremonies, or history. It was the ability to stand together when life became difficult. The chapter closed with powerful realization that even within the walls of a centuries-old institution, the most unforgettable moments are created by courage, love, and the human spirit.